Hey, hi, hello. Welcome to Diana Emerson. Today, we're listening to Fear Thy Neighbor, Law and Disorder.
A tight-knit neighborhood can feel like a sanctuary. It's a very nice community. Everybody gets along. We used to shop, and we would just visit each other's homes. We're going to barbecue. We'd love to have you there. Oh, we'd love to. The arrival of one twisted soul can tear everything apart. This isn't over. We were just hoping to get along and be friends.
He knew it was going to be a matter of time before he wouldn't snap.
He just kept on and on and on.
As your pig of a wife today.
His toxic, venomous, confrontational, adversarial.
He said, "Bullets will fly and people will die, and I'll take my neighbors down with me."
You crap.
This is full.
Stevensville, Maryland, a friendly community situated just off the Chesapeake Bay. It offers a beautiful rustic way of life.
Stevensville, Maryland would be considered a rural area, typically law-abiding citizens, respect the police, respect the law.
Emery Circle is a cherished cul-de-sac neighborhood. All the lots are at least like acre, 2 acres, 3 acres, so you're not really shoved up against each other. And it's a real, very nice community. Everybody gets along great.
I think it was a blown gasket.
I think you're right.
Oh boy, my whole family's turning into gearheads. What's next?
Mark and Diane Alexander settled here 7 years ago with their sons, Christopher and Jason, as well as the family dog, Lena.
In 1990, we had our home built and we moved there, and we were so proud.
Diane is the assistant vice president at a local bank. Mark runs his own auto detailing business.
We knew each other from high school, and I always had a crush on that man. Actually, Mark offered to fix my car for me, and it was all uphill from there. He rotated more than just my tires, and we were very, very happy.
Joe and Barbara Sale live a few houses over.
Hey guys,
Hey, what you into?
just up for a walk.
We love the snow.
We liked the area and we liked the lot, and we thought it would be a nice place to live and for our kids.
So are we still on for barbecue?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Looking forward to more of those tasty burgers.
I do my best.
We'd have cookouts and, just visit each other back and forth.
Everybody that we lived around were, fabulous people. It was a very, peaceful place for sure. Friendly place.
Awesome. We'll see you then.
Hi, Linda. How's Max, that rascal? Taking me for a walk.
Now, the little community of Emery Circle
Hey, look.
is about to gain some new members on a lot next to Mark and Diane.
They pulled up, and Mark and I said, we should go over and say hi.
Let's go introduce ourselves.
Let me help. This one's kind of heavy.
Come on,
Okay? All right.
Charles Richter, known as Pete, is a former Baltimore police officer, now working as a security guard. His wife, Barbara, is a baker.
Sorry to bother you. Just wanted to say hi.
We're your neighbors next door.
Nice meeting you. Charles, but everyone calls me Pete.
And I'm Barbara, his better half.
With 2 grown children out of the nest, Pete and Barbara are renovating their new place to make it their retirement home.
Mr. Richter was boisterous and loud and aggressive, but we figured he was just excited.
I tell you, you know what? We're really looking forward to spending our retirement years somewhere really nice and peaceful.
But today's peace and quiet is tomorrow's violence and tragedy.
You practically admitted that he didn't fucking hit it.
What kind of bully are you?
For now, the only thing the new neighbors might worry about is occasional loud music.
He told us that he worked at night, and Mark and I looked at each other.
Just letting you know, our son Christopher likes to play the drums.
And our son Jason really likes to play the guitar, but please let us know if it's an issue.
He was excited.
Your son's a musician, so am I. Like to play a little piano, sing a little bit.
He talked to us about the fact that he had friends that would gather and play music.
He did play music sometimes for senior citizens.
Oh, I'm liking this place already. We're having a barbecue. All the other neighbors are going to be there.
Yeah, come. It's at 6 o'clock. We'd love to have you there.
Oh, we'd love to.
Great. I'm there.
Look forward to it.
Bye.
Oh, it's not nice.
Making pencils. Yeah.
We were just hoping to get along and be friends. They were our next door neighbors, and we just needed to get along.
The renovations on Pete and Barbara's home are going well, until they make a disturbing discovery.
The Richter's home was vandalized.
I'll take care of things.
Did you see anyone near the Richter's house lately?
We had a friend went over there the other day to look around, but we didn't see anyone.
Yeah, that's right.
My husband and another neighbor, being curious, not up to anything malicious, walked over and peeked in their porch window, and just to see what the layout was looking like.
To Pete, this sounds highly suspicious.
He practically admitted that he and his buddy did it. So take him in.
From that escalated the fact that, from Richter, that clearly we were guilty.
Aren't you at least going to bring him in for questioning?
We'll let you know if we turn up any leads.
This response is nowhere near good enough for Pete.
He claimed that the officers either didn't do a good job or tried to destroy evidence so they didn't have to do a good job. And I think he would accuse the police of looking the other way to that crime.
I know nobody was ever charged with the burglary, and I think that's what set Pete Richter over the edge.
Mr. Richter would not leave the vandalism alone. He didn't understand the word no. And so he just kept on and on and on.
He accused all the neighbors of that. I mean, that didn't make sense. I mean, you just don't do that. I mean, it was ridiculous.
When you're not guilty of something, when you're innocent and you're being targeted, after a while, it does get upsetting.
Despite being falsely accused, Mark and Diane are determined to keep the peace in the neighborhood.
Most of us just thought it would calm down and we would give it a try. You have to work sometimes at relationships, but it never calmed down. It only escalated.
Whoever vandalized Pete Richter's house has gotten away with it. Now he keeps watch for anything that crosses the line.
One of our neighbors drove a tractor trailer for a living. That was his livelihood. That's what he did. And on the weekends, he would sometimes bring the trailer home. It wasn't the prettiest sight to look at as you're sitting on your front porch. We all agreed to that, and we talked about it, but he didn't have any place else to park it on the weekends.
As long as it was only there a little bit of time, you know, just for an overnight or something, wasn't bad.
Yet Pete's not putting up with this eyesore.
It's been out there for days. Makes the whole street look like a garbage dump. We should get it towed away.
Oh, take it easy, Pete. Trailer belongs to one of our neighbors here.
But Pete makes a fair point. The neighbors in Emery Circle have agreed to abide by a set of covenants.
The covenants are like the house has to be a certain size. You can't have extra buildings on your property, that kind of thing. It was done so to keep the neighborhood nice.
Well, what's the sense of signing a covenants agreement if people do whatever they want? Don't you agree?
We're not going to make life difficult for our neighbors.
We each had to sign the covenants. The problem was we didn't have an acting association. So if you were going to enforce the covenants, you had to do it as a one-on-one.
So that's the way it is.
We wouldn't side with him. For him, that was defiance. And he looked right at me and said, you're either with me or you're against me. And if you're against me, I will make your life hell.
Here now, Pete. Things will sort themselves out.
Pete doesn't want to wait for things to settle down on their own.
Richter had the county come and post a sign that said you couldn't park in excess of so many poundage, and it made it harder for this man that was, trying to earn a living for his family.
I guess he thought he was going to be the boss of everybody.
And as Pete tries to lay down the law, things will only go from bad to worse.
If you were on board with Pete, hey, it was great. But if you weren't on board with Pete, there was going to be hell to pay from a neighbor standpoint.
Emery Circle is an attractive place because of the wide open lots. Yet for Pete Richter, his neighbors, and especially their dogs, are still too close for comfort. Linda Austin's property runs behind Pete's house.
And so he started picking on her, and he said he didn't like dogs.
Get away! Leave me alone!
Market Sander claims to witness a troubling event involving Pete and Linda's dog.
Get away! Leave me alone!
Were the dogs barking? Sure. But those dogs were fenced in. They weren't in a position to jump the fence.
According to Mark, Pete pulls out a spray can to deal with his neighbor's pet.
He was standing there shooting this can at her dog. And Mark observed this.
Stop that! What?
Mark and Diane have already decided, as much as possible, not to escalate things with Pete directly. But Mark still wants to let Linda know what he saw.
Mark thought that it had to be Mace. So he wrote a note and put it in our neighbor's mailbox to let her know when she came home what he observed, so that she would have some idea of what might have happened to her dog.
What kind of bully are you, macing a dog?
Linda, she's a strong-willed individual. She was furious.
I'm pressing charges of animal cruelty.
I told her what you did.
Your dog was barking and bothering me. You need to get it under control.
You could have blinded Max.
Both of you, off my property now!
I don't know if it's because he thought from he had been in the city as a police officer, he could be the boss or do whatever he wanted.
Now, Pete wants proof when neighbors break any more of the Emery Circle covenant rules.
He always had a camera. He would hold it up looking all the time to see what you were doing. He was always wanting to take pictures.
I've got you both on camera as trespassing. Now I advise you to leave before I call the police.
This isn't over. I'm going to charge you over what you did to my dog.
Pete denies that he used mace against the animal.
I know that they ended up in court over that, and Mark was subpoenaed, but unfortunately, since he couldn't read the labeling on the can, the case was thrown out. Richter was never charged with anything.
In this ongoing dispute, property lines become battle lines.
My brother and his friends were playing basketball.
He disliked the boys because they played basketball. He didn't like the sound of a ball dribbling.
The basketball hoop was very close to their property line, and so he would stand there with a video camera and wait for the ball to trespass onto his property, and the Richters just couldn't wait for that ball to go over there.
It's just a matter of time before the inevitable happens.
Basketball, like missed the basket and rolled over into a jar.
That's it. Hey, you bozos! You making noise and acting like you're on the street.
Richter was harassing the kids. So I went out there.
Anything that comes on my property belongs to me.
He would say you're trespassing if you tried to retrieve the ball.
Hey, why don't you leave him alone and stop being such a grouch?
And I said, if the ball goes on his property and he feels the need to keep it, have at it. But let the kids just play ball.
He would try to overwhelm people with his personality. And if you stood up to him, he didn't like it.
Get out of here.
We really thought if we didn't engage in conversation with this man, that eventually he would just leave us alone, that he would give up, that he would stop. But he never did.
Day in and day out, Pete keeps close watch on his boundary line with the Alexanders.
He was on a large lot, and for some reason, that seemed to incite him to be more territorial.
Mr. Richter had put up like stakes marking the property lines. And I think one of them was like in my father's way, and he just like picked it up and like threw it.
For Pete, this is just one more bad neighbor breaking the rules, and he won't take it lying down.
Pete thought that it was me, and so he sued me, took me to court, and that one basically got thrown out because the judge was like, this obviously wasn't me that was on that video.
The sad thing is, it wasn't just our family. There were other neighbors that were also taken to court. So it seemed like Richter was in court all the time.
He certainly wanted everything prosecuted. He enjoyed being in court. He enjoyed the adversarial nature of litigation.
And I think that also fueled Mr. Richter's fire, and it just continued to agitate this situation.
It seems fanning the flames is what Pete Richter does best.
As a security guard, he worked at night, and so he would sit in his car 10, 15 minutes before he had to leave, and he would just shine his high beams at our home.
What is that?
And our bedroom window, unfortunately, faced in that direction.
What time is it?
What the hell is he doing? It's Pete.
What?
It went on for months and months.
Pull the curtains. Ignore him. Come back to bed.
And then he would go to the other neighbors, and he would sit in front of their driveways.
We come down to our house and he's shine the lights on our house. And I called the police and they said, well, there's nothing we can do. He hasn't done anything. And I said, but it's like he's trying to intimidate everybody. I guess you can do whatever you want until somebody gets hurt.
Once again, the Alexanders try to suffer the harassment in silence.
What do we need to do to keep him from hating us so badly? We weren't trying to annoy him, but nothing was working.
Any and every little thing triggers another explosion across the adjoining yards.
Granted, my son did play, and granted, you could hear him from the garage, even though he kept the garage door shut. And unfortunately, our garage door faced their property line.
He heard me playing drums, and he was very angry about that.
This is supposed to be a quiet neighborhood. I offered to lend them money to stop this.
He wanted my parents to soundproof the garage, which they didn't have the money for.
You stop, Sam. Don't make a fuss. Don't. Come back.
Open up.
I think I was overwhelmed by how angry he seemed. You could actually just see it in his face.
A lot of the people in the community knew he was a loose cannon and just knew it was going to be a matter of time before he would snap.
You can make what's on right now as you're putting him away from the house is on fire. I've had it up here.
It was just constant tension. It was just like unreal.
Tired of this racket. I offered to insulate this place from your parents and they still didn't do nothing.
It scared Jason, so he called me. Hello?
Hey, Mom.
And said that Richter was there with his finger in our son Chris's face about the drums.
Richter, he's talking to Christian.
What? What? No. Put Richter on.
Mom wants to talk to you.
And I told Richter, we can talk about this if you'd like when Mark and I come home, but you are to leave my property immediately, and you are to never come and approach my sons unless I'm home.
You leave my boys alone right now. Do we understand each other?
The boy said he was clearly, vividly perturbed and angry with me.
Pete Richter won't let this go.
Mr. Richter did actually sue his neighbors civilly over the Xander young boy playing the drums. They had a week-long jury trial.
Mr. Richter was suing for over $40,000, and the jury found us in violation of a noise ordinance and awarded Richter $5,000. But in the end, the judge decided that my son could still play the drums. He just had to do it within a specific amount of time.
I think ultimately the family across the board tried not to engage this man, tried not to provoke him in any way, shape, or form. They wanted to live their lives, but it was very difficult because he was so venomous.
It got to the point where if Mark was cutting the trees and came around, Richter would scream at him for being on his property.
And it just a constant agitated state that Pete laid in.
It's not just the Xanders suffering the consequences of Pete's obsessions.
My one son had a dune buggy. It didn't have tags, but I mean, he was just trying it out in our yard, and then he went out to the circle. Not on the highway or anything, but we ended up in court over that, and it was so ridiculous. He saw you on the roads with no tags.
I do believe Mr. Richter charged most of his neighbors at one time or another with something. Whether it was a civil violation, an animal violation, allegations of not keeping their yard properly maintained, whatever he could find, he pursued.
All through the neighborhood, Pete is a constant, menacing presence.
Hey, Josh, tomorrow, how was your day?
Also good.
And he would just follow my son. Just to harass him. My son was a little bit worried because we always said, don't ever go by that house, don't walk in that yard, stay way away from it.
Avoiding Pete is next to impossible. Life on Emery Circle gets more and more stressful.
Lovely day, isn't it, Mark?
He would entice people into conversations and then start recording them, trying to provoke them to do something to him.
How's your pig of a wife today?
He would make it a point to call me names. He would do stuff like that, hoping to get a rise out of Mark.
Come on, Lisa, let's go.
He was hoping that Mark would just fly off and come after him. But Mark never did.
In this tense situation, Pete is on perpetual alert for any threat.
He said somebody threw nails on his driveway.
Just like when his house was vandalized, Pete believes the Xanders are responsible.
That didn't even make sense. I think it was more like maybe construction or something. Maybe they dropped a box of nails or something. I just don't believe anybody did that.
Pete calls the police, but is foiled yet again.
Something's got to be done around here. It's obvious the Xanders did this. Yeah, you!
There's no proof that any of their neighbors were involved. And Mr. Richter, I think, just got to the point where he felt as though his repetitive complaints were met with deaf ears. When in reality, the matters were looked into. It's just that the evidence didn't support his claims.
What's it going to take for you to do something about this?
Now the intolerable situation explodes to a whole new level.
A neighbor knocked on the door, and my father was the one who answered.
Mark, you have to get over there. Your house is on fire. What? Oh my God!
This neighborhood war has reached the point of no return.
It just got worse and worse.
What's the matter with you? I'm sick of it. You don't have any respect. You did it.
I was at work at the time actually, and somebody told me that my family's home had burnt down, and I was just in shock.
It was so fast, and it started like at the top of the whole house, you know, it was just burned.
Hey, Mark. Got what you deserve. You did this.
We would think that one would have compassion for a family that just lost everything they owned, but he was just so hateful.
Firefighters are unable to save the Alexander's house. In the aftermath, the whole community wants answers.
The fire marshal investigated, but they couldn't determine the point of origin.
Ultimately, the investigation, the fire marshal closed it as a mulch fire.
It was a mysterious fire. I don't know how mulch would spontaneously combust, so that was suspicious.
Emery Circle doesn't have long to recover from this terrible night. Soon after, in a strange coincidence, the Sayers house also catches fire. But they're luckier than the Alexanders.
The next door neighbor got the fire under control before the fire department got there, or our house would have burned.
Once again, it's deemed a mulch fire, and no one has any hard evidence to prove otherwise.
After the house fire, we entertained moving, but we couldn't find anything, and we missed our neighbors.
6 months later, the Alexander home has been rebuilt and is ready for their return.
Thank you so much for coming by. I'm glad you guys are okay.
But some things in the neighborhood still can't be fixed.
When we moved back into the home, Richter was on his warpath with other people in the community that he was bothering.
All right, okay, boys, let's just go. Okay, let's go home. No.
In hindsight, I wish we would have moved. A few of the other neighbors did move, but we loved our home. Our children practically grew up there, and we loved the neighbors that did stay, so we didn't move.
Living so close to the Richters, every day brings a new provocation.
My father saw that Lena was gone and then went looking for Lena.
Lena?
That particular day, I can't remember why the dog went over there, but I believe she was in chase with a rabbit.
Where are you?
Mark realizes Lena is barking from inside Pete's garage.
Mr. Richter grabbed the dog, he chained her, and then he called animal control.
Hey, Pete. What's the matter with you? Let my dog out of there. Your dog attacked my wife. You could have killed her. No way.
According to Pete, when he and his wife Barbara came home, the Alexander dog charged onto their property.
Mr. Richter claimed his neighbor's dog attacked his wife and bloodied her nose.
Under questioning, Pete's claim falls apart.
When animal control went over, she had a bloody nose. Animal control asked her if she was okay. She said, yes, I'm fine. I just had some sinus surgery done.
Their stories were conflicting on scene. We could tell he was fabricating these allegations that the neighbor's dog had attacked her.
Predictably, Pete files a complaint about Lena.
We had to go to court for it, and the end result of that was I was told to be more careful with the dog, and that never pleased Richter because he wanted something serious to happen. He wanted us to be, mandated to chain our dogs.
Come on. Look at this day. So beautiful, right?
Diane is about to learn that Pete can teach an old dog new tricks.
Mark Xander had a special whistle that he used to call his dog. Mr. Richter learned that whistle, learned to mock that whistle, would try to get the dog to come onto his property.
And she went to the whistle.
Hey, Lena, that's not Mark.
And now there's something even more disturbing to worry about.
Mr. Richter carried a .22 caliber Derringer, and he made us aware of that on numerous occasions.
What's going on? Are you okay?
No, I'm not okay. I just saw Pete. God.
I believe Richter targeted Mark the most because he didn't carry a weapon. The other neighbors, they all had weapons. Mark and I, we never believed in weapons. Mark didn't hunt. And, of course, we were an easy target because we were right next door.
Maybe we should have a gun too.
No.
For protection.
No, that's not the answer. I know what to do. Let's go.
Diane turns to the courts to keep her neighbor at a safe distance.
We obtained a no trespassing order for him.
Peace order was to keep him off her property, keep him from contacting her, harassing her, speaking to her.
But the peace order won't work if both parties don't follow the rules.
He'd still come to that property line and make hand gestures and start, calling names.
Hey, Xander! I want you, your damn dog, your family on that side of the property. You try going over here, it'll be the last time.
No property border or peace order will stop this ticking time bomb. And the worst is yet to come.
Mark came home. He gave me a kiss. He told me he was going to go trim the hedges that we had in the back. And I said, okay. And that was it. He left. And, of course, the dog followed him.
And then at that point, sometime Richter imitated the dog whistle, and the dog ran across the property.
Lena, where are you going?
He was well aware that Pete would bait her, and this had happened before.
Your damn dog's been on my property again, Mark.
Mark came over to try to get the dog. That's when they got into the confrontation.
Richter once said, bullets will fly and people will die, and I'll take my neighbors down with me.
It's odd because when I was in the kitchen starting dinner, something told me to take Mark a beer or check on him or let him know that we were going to eat dinner early that night. Out of nowhere, police officers were everywhere, the fire truck. What? And that's when I noticed Mark laying in the front yard.
Mark Xander had been shot.
And I screamed, you let me go. That's my husband.
Emergency crews worked desperately to save Mark's life.
I could tell by their actions that it was horribly, horribly going wrong.
They loaded him into the ambulance, took off up the road.
Jason and I went to the hospital. And that's when we were immediately told that we had lost Mark. That he didn't make it. That he was gone.
The man who shot and killed Mark Alexander is next-door neighbor Pete Richter. He also made the call to 911.
Send the police. Tell me exactly what's going on. My neighbor just come in my house, attacked me, and I shot him with 22. The guy that he shot, is he hurt? He ran out of here. Send the police, man. I'm out of practice fighting with this guy.
After summoning authorities, Pete sets up his video camera in his garage.
Richter was sitting on a stool. He was spinning the gun around his finger, just sitting there kind of nonchalantly, spinning the pistol.
Hands up, I can see him. Up. Keep your hands up, I can see him. Yeah, man. You calm down. Calm down. Get up. All right. Put your hands behind your back. Put your hands behind your back. Turn around. No, bud. What happened, man? That guy came into my house here and jumped.
According to Pete, Mark's dog came on his property.
He then claims that he is bringing the dog back to the garage, as he's done in the past, to phone animal control.
So Mark, according to Pete, went to get the dog, got into a fight with him in the garage.
What the hell are you doing with my dog? He's tying this dog up in his garage, and he's now attacked from behind by Mr. Xander.
Stick to your crap. Send it now.
Pete Richter claimed that he was trying to shoot Mark Alexander in the butt. That's what he said.
According to Richter, Mark took off running across the yard, made it through the tree line, and collapsed.
Now look, let's face it, if Mr. Richter is attacked in his home, he has a right to protect his home, his property, his family, and maybe the shooting is justified.
Investigators start combing through Pete Richter's house, gathering evidence.
They found lots of ammunition. He had all these videos of the neighbors, which showed he was obsessive. The most telling thing, though, was that we found a picture of the Alexander's burned house.
The top of that had written on that photograph, like, the Lord works in mysterious ways. And at the bottom said, what goes around comes around.
That shows you that he relished the fact that their house burned down.
Pete's version of events is soon completely shredded. There is no blood or sign of any struggle in the garage. Mark could not have been shot there, as Pete argued. He was clearly struck in the back on his property.
The medical examiner and the other forensic investigator didn't believe that Mark Alexander could have traveled very far with injuries like this. That defied Pete Richter's theory that Mark Alexander ran all the way from his garage back into his own yard. He couldn't have gone that far. I mean, it was obvious to us that Pete shot this man in cold blood and then tried to come up with his best self-defense, fabricated story to save himself.
I do believe that Pete, when he came home that day, he saw an opportunity because he saw Mark trimming the hedges. And he did what he had done in the past. He baited our dog.
Hey, where are you going?
Your damn dog's on my property again. You're trespassing on my property now.
Give me my dog back. Right now.
Are you threatening me?
Richter was standing there and said something to Mark, hoping that Mark would approach him and come into his garage. but Mark didn't.
Call the cops. Let's go, Lena.
He just turned around and walked away, and that's when Richter shot him in the back.
To increase their chances of conviction, prosecutors charge Pete Richter with both first and second-degree murder and the use of a firearm in the commission of an act of violence.
Thank God the jury saw through him. It didn't take the jury long to find him guilty of second-degree murder.
Mr. Richter was sentenced to 20 years in prison and then consecutively 5 years for the use of the handgun in the commission of the felony.
The Xander family and their friends take some comfort from the decision. All continue to mourn Mark's tragic death.
It was pretty incredible how the community came together and supported my family and showed their respects to my father. It made me realize that there's far more love in the world and support than there is evil.
In honor of her husband, Diane is working to get Mark's Law passed in the Maryland State Legislature. Under this provision, gun owners would not be allowed to regain a gun permit if it had previously been revoked.
I want so badly to try and prevent the pain my family and friends have carried for almost 10 years from happening to another family or another neighborhood. I deeply feel when Mark's Law is passed, others will be spared the pain that we have suffered.
I think in the beginning, everything was so numb. Some people have moved away and a lot of things have changed. But we're still there, and Diane's still there.
I met my husband when I was just 18. What the heck do you know at 18? But we managed to stay happily married up until he was murdered and had 2 wonderful boys. We used to tease each other and say if we didn't do anything else right, we did raise 2 wonderful human beings. My beautiful grandson, Caleb, was born in 2018, and so I retired. And he is my sunshine. He is everything.
Neighbors can live side by side.
Morning. Morning. You all set? All ready to go.
They can even work hand in hand.
Hard at it, huh? There you go, just in time.
At first, John and Jim were great together.
But too much time, too close.
One guy wanted to be loud, one guy wanted to be quiet.
Come on, Jim, be reasonable. When did you become a senior citizen?
And things can get real ugly, real fast. He just got really hateful then.
Don't push me out of cops!
He was scared that something really bad was going to happen.
One of them had to move. That would be the only way it would solve. Either it was Jim or John.
This is going to end now!